Welcome to WVTC TV Network, capturing family moments in real time, bringing families closer together from the comforts of home. We are unleashing something different to the world. Start your subscription today for the low price of $4.99 per month or $55 annually. Go to www.wvtctvnetwork.com to sign up today. WVTC TV Network is streaming live on 8 different platforms. You can easily download the WVTC TV Network app on the Apple Store, Play Store, Roku, Fire TV, and more. Here at WVTC TV, we have access to movies that everyone can enjoy, including independent films Sons of a Preacher and a Good Thing, Treasures of Life, the epic drama The Passion of the Christ, and the box office hit Madagascar Escape to Africa. Remember, go to www.wvtctvnetwork.com and sign up today.
The following program contains views that are not those of WVTC, iNetworks Communications, their subsidiaries, affiliates, or financial supporters.
WVTC, reaching the world with positivity. Music to get you through your day. Winning victory through Christ is the only way. I'ma do it better. 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 I'ma do it better. Better. Better.
Welcome to Healing Works with Anna. I'm Anna, licensed marriage and family therapist, and we are talking about how therapy is so important to healing our community and why it's so important to healing our community. So today we'll be talking about dispelling myths, specifically around therapy. So what some of those myths are and dispelling some of those for you. And this is Delaney.
Yes, and I'll be co-hosting today and interviewing Anna and asking her some questions. Our first question is, what are some of the most common myths about mental health and that you have encountered?
I think for me, there's so many myths, but I would say probably the biggest one is that mental health is only for people who have a diagnosed mental illness. So that would be one. I would also say the other one that comes to my mind is that therapy is a place you go when something is wrong with you. And I think neither of those things are true. Of course, if you have a diagnosed mental illness, therapy is a space for you, but that's not all that therapy is. I think therapy is a space where you get to explore your values, you get to explore, past hurts, maybe even past traumatic events. And you get to also explore who it is that you are becoming, who it is that you want to be. I think for couples, it's a place where you can really strengthen your relationship and create the relationship that you've always dreamed of.
Totally, I agree. And I think it's also like a great place to like level up. Like if you are doing well in your life and you want to take your life to the next level, that's a great place to do it. Why do you think there's still a stigma around seeking mental health care in our communities?
I think there's so many reasons for this stigma, but there are a few things that play a role. I would say one is, I know that for me growing up, mental health and emotional health weren't really talked about. And so I think, typically if you had an issue, you would talk with your pastor about it. You would talk with an elder in the family about it. And I'm blessed to have had really amazing elders in our family who are very wise. And I would also say, though, that therapy is something that is an added resource to all of those things. And so I think that's one reason.
Mhm.
The other reason why I think there's still a stigma around therapy is typically, historically, therapy hasn't been a space for us,
Mm.
and for our community. And so I think that it's different now than it was then because there are a lot of therapists who look like us who understand our context, our history, everything, and how that plays a role in who
Yeah.
we are and who we're becoming. And so, um, therapy there are now therapeutic spaces that are for us and that will
Mhm.
allow us to live a life where we can thrive and experience abundance and all that, all that life has for us.
Absolutely. Um, this is a big question. Can therapy actually change who you are, or is it more about understanding yourself better?
Um, I Therapy is not meant to change who you are.
Amazing.
I
Yeah.
think therapy, it's all about understanding yourself better. One of my favorite things is, when I'm working with an individual in therapy, I love helping them understand what are their core values,
Mhm.
and how are they living in life, are they living aligned to those core values or is there some misalignment? And when there's misalignment, that causes distress,
Yeah.
and so helping folks understand their core values and how to live in alignment with those is more so, um, yeah, that piece for individuals and for couples.
Yeah. Absolutely. This is another big question. How do you respond to people who say, I don't need therapy and I can handle things on my own?
So, I think I would say for that, it depends.
Mhm.
I have further questions for that because
Mhm.
if it's like, I don't need therapy because I am very introspective. I live
Mhm.
within my body. I don't really, you know, disassociate.
Mhm.
I am consistently making sure that I'm living aligned to my values and I
Yeah.
have community who support that and support me. Then I'm like, that's awesome. If you're operating out of that healed space, yeah, like
Mhm.
maybe therapy isn't for you. If you are saying that because it's like, all you know is survival mode and all
Mhm.
you know is like, I just got me,
Mhm.
nobody else does, like,
Yeah.
then, that's operating still from an unhealed space. And therapy
Mhm.
is a chance for you to even get to discover, like, one, who are you? What are your needs? Especially the needs that have gone unmet,
Mhm.
and healing the wounds that creates, while also creating space for, like, you to, like,
Mhm.
be more connected with yourself and invite community into your life who actually, provide healing instead of further harm, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. I feel like the word need is so
Mm,
tricky because
yeah.
does everyone need therapy? Maybe not,
Mm,
but could everyone benefit from therapy?
absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
For sure. Is it true that therapy is just about talking, or are there different approaches that might surprise people?
I think there are different approaches because I don't know about you, but whenever we see therapists in, on a TV show,
Mhm.
it's like they're talking. Sometimes they're not even that empathetic,
Mhm.
and it's just kind of they're like telling you what to do.
Mhm.
And the reality is there's so many different approaches to therapy. Like, for example, one of them is, if you find that when you're feeling sad or anxious, you get headaches, or
Mhm.
maybe you have GI issues. There are different physical things that are connected to your emotional health,
Mhm.
and so there are some therapists who help you process past hurt, past trauma,
Yeah.
like through your body. And I just to add to that too, I think with the, therapy, just talking, I'm like, it's so much more than
Mhm.
talking because even if we are dialoguing, if you will,
Mhm.
the goal, at least coming from me, is to help you make connections,
Mhm.
like how can you understand yourself better? How has your the ways that you grew up and your family influence the way that you think about yourself and the way that you think about other people. And so it's so much more than just talking.
Yeah, I think like with that stigma around mental health, like going to therapy is just like, so I'm just gonna talk about my problems and essentially get re-traumatized again. And I think that point about like, helping make connections, because I feel like, context is so key. Like it's
Absolutely.
important for us to like identify our reference points of why we act and behave and operate the way that we do. And then I love that there are many different like types of therapy for that reason.
Absolutely.
What are some specific myths about therapy that are unique to Black or multicultural communities?
That's a good question. I do think one of the ones is that it's just not for us. That's just not for us.
Yeah.
Or even like, oh, Black people don't have anxiety.
I think we all learned that wasn't true when
Yeah.
a lot of us watched This Is Us and we saw Randall's character and we actually
Absolutely.
saw what like anxiety looked like, especially for a Black man. And so, yeah, that's absolutely true.
Yeah, I'm like it's just that things look different for us because context is key, and so historically there's just so many things that contribute to why our expression of anxiety or depression or just grief might look different
Absolutely.
from other cultures. But I think that's probably the biggest myth for sure.
Can I throw one out there too? I think another one is that when we have communities like church communities or different mentorship programs and stuff, that we don't need therapy. And I think sometimes like that could be the very thing that we pray for, like that very tool that we pray for, hope for, in a lot of those communities that can take it further. And so we start seeing the benefits of that in that way.
Definitely. Yeah, it's just an added it's just an added resource,
Absolutely.
like to get to have a space that truly is for you, about you, to facilitate your personal growth in ways that benefit not just you, but everyone around you.
Absolutely. You kind of touched on this one a little bit earlier, but what do you say to people who believe therapy is only for crazy or sick people?
I just say that's not true. That's not true. I mean, like, obviously, like and I'm not going to use, the word crazy, but like, I think, like therapy definitely helps folks who struggle with mental illness. I think that's something that, that really is essential. And that's not all it's for. That's honestly, in my opinion, a minority of, the population for folks who are in therapy.
Absolutely.
You mentioned it earlier, for folks even who want to level up. I've worked with folks who maybe have imposter syndrome and they want to go to a different place in their career. But that imposter syndrome, is coming up for them. And what I find is that it's rooted in self-doubt, and so there's all these messages that they're playing in their head that contributes to that. So what we get to do is work on increasing self-love. And there's so many things around that.
Absolutely. I think a follow-up question to that, in terms of like leveling up, what would you say is the difference between going to therapy and seeking counseling rather than coaching?
Good question. I would say therapy really helps you understand your family of origin. And what I mean by family of origin is, like the ways that everyone's family is different. And so what's normal in my family isn't normal in your family,
Absolutely.
So like, but that all, that plays a role where I grew up, and just, the messages that I received through my community, through media, all plays a role. And so all that to say that counseling or therapy really helps you be able to deeply explore all of those things and how those things affect the way that you move today,
For
whether,
sure.
in relationship to others or, really in every aspect of life.
Yeah.
Coaching, I think, is different. Coaching is more so for people who've already done that deeper work and are looking for something like, some tools. Like, you
Sure.
know what? I know why I think the way that I do. I get it. But
Yeah.
I'm just struggling to maybe like organize my schedule in a way that's beneficial to me. And so with coaching, there's still going to be some touching on things like, if that's the case, what I might find with someone is that, oh, it's because you're not used to prioritizing your needs, and so,
Right.
let's talk about that, but it's not going to be that deeper exploration, if that
Mm,
makes sense.
for sure. Um, does therapy always take years to see results, or can it be helpful in a shorter time frame?
It does not always take years.
Awesome.
It does not.
Yes.
And I think, I would say that also is not a quick fix, so
Mhm.
there's a balance there. So
Sure.
you come to therapy expecting to be healed in 3 sessions,
Sessions,
that's
yeah.
not going to be a realistic expectation. So
Mhm.
it does take time, but it doesn't have to take years. It really is just about what is the work that you're willing to put in outside of your sessions, and that's,
Absolutely.
what helps you see the results that you're hoping for.
Mhm.
And then I will say for some people, they might do the crux of their work
Yeah.
within like 6 to 8 months,
Mhm.
but then come back on a monthly basis for check-ins. And so
Yeah,
it's all about what works best.
for
Yeah.
sure. What would you say to the person that is very self-aware, that is very, they do a lot of reading, they've sought out help in many different ways, and is open to therapy and goes to a session and is like, how can you help someone like me?
Mm. I guess my question would be, well, how do you want to be helped?
Mhm.
Because I think self-awareness is awesome and,
Yes.
and so the reality is, what is it that you're hoping for from
Yeah.
this space? And how can I best support you in that?
Mhm. Absolutely. Um, what is a myth about mental health that you used to believe, but now you see differently?
Ooh, that's a good one. Hmm. I think, oh gosh, probably so many. But I think that I did not understand the amount of work it would take on my end
Mm,
in doing therapy. So I think I assumed that it would be go to these sessions and the therapist is just like, what do you want to talk about?
mhm.
And then, just
Yeah.
talking and that's it. Like,
Mhm.
versus having therapists who really seek to understand my personal context,
Mhm.
and then challenge some ways of thinking that maybe aren't aligned with my core values.
Sure.
And so that actually, the amount of self reflection
Mhm.
that is involved is something that I did not recognize.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think a myth for me, um, that I now see differently is that, um, kind of similar to your point. I used to think going into therapy, like, this person has an agenda. I'm gonna go in and
Mm,
like spill all this stuff, and then they're gonna kind of convolute it to, profit off of me.
mm,
But I found that in my times in therapy, like, they're really for me. They're not against me. I
mhm.
think they really kind of really do want to see, growth and progress and reflection through me. And I think that only happens when I go in and I'm like actually honest and like, and I
Yes.
don't hold a lot back
Absolutely.
out of fear of like, okay, I'm going to say this thing. And like,
Mhm.
so yeah, I think if I
Yeah.
come in with the mindset of, I'm going to just put everything out there and
Mhm.
then that person's going to help guide me rather than you know, they're
Yeah.
they're not the one driving the boat essentially. So
No, I think that makes sense. It kind of makes me think too, like about that fear of being judged, which I do think I had myself, before going to therapy for the first time, not realizing, oh, this is with a good therapist,
yeah.
a non-judgmental space.
Mhm.
Yeah.
What encouragement or like tips do you have for someone that's in the process of vetting out what kind of therapist that they're looking for?
That's a good question. That's a good question. Because yeah, this might sound bad, but I'm like, not all therapists are,
Yeah.
yeah. And
It's
so,
not a one size fits all.
no,
Yeah.
like what works for one person isn't going to work for another. So
Mhm.
I would say first understanding what are your hopes and goals for the process of therapy? Like, if you're going in as an individual, what are your hopes and goals? What are you hoping to get out of it? If you're going in as a couple, like what are your collective goals? Yeah, so I would say starting there.
Mhm.
And then I would start to look for, especially as Black folks looking for therapists, are they culturally responsive? And what I mean by that is culturally responsive is more than culturally aware.
Sure.
You can be aware about a lot of things. So like culturally responsive means that I'm actually responding to you by understanding like your cultural context.
Yeah.
And so I'm taking that into account and making sure that I am like creating as safe as possible an environment for you to really explore um yeah, like while taking in the whole, I guess, how would you say it? Like all of you basically, all these parts. And so I would say culturally responsive is key.
Yeah.
And then, you know, I would also ask the therapist questions, especially a lot of therapists will offer, a free consultation. And so really asking them like, hey, here are the things that I'm coming in, which is why that first part of knowing what you're coming in for is important. How could you help, with something like this? And, seeing how they answer and if that feels aligned to what you're looking for. Um, and last but not least, I would consider how you feel before, during, and after
Yeah.
either that consultation or first session.
Yeah.
Because, before you might be feeling nervous, that's normal.
Mhm.
During, do you feel an emotional safety? Like, do you feel a sense of calm? Maybe do you even feel a sense of release of like, like, okay,
Yeah.
or do you feel even more tense? Are your shoulders up here after, like, do you feel anxiousness in your gut? So really listening to your body and how you feel before, during, and after, I think really helps to an understanding. Is this a good fit?
Absolutely.
One
Oh
more
yeah,
thing
absolutely.
with
Yeah.
that is that I would say never be afraid to pivot. So if you have a first session and you're like, it's okay, pivot,
Yeah.
and just keep trying until you find the right fit, because you will find the right fit.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are kind of nervous to like try on different therapists and
Yeah.
kind of see what actually fits them. I think a lot of us can have like a iffy experience with someone and be like, "Yep, I'm done with that." But I definitely think like it's worth, giving it a shot and definitely coming with questions and utilizing that free consultation time. So, yeah, that's all the questions I have for you.
Awesome.
Awesome. Do you have
Yeah.
anything to say to close out?
I guess I would be curious for you. What are the things that you find valuable in a therapist?
Oh, for me, a question for me.
Yes.
I think one that actually listens. I think some people hear what you're saying and other people really listen and they're reflective listeners. And you can tell who cares by the way that they ask questions. So like when I share something that's really deep and sensitive for me. The way that they follow up with questions and reflect back to me of like, am I hearing this right? I find that really important. That piece about emotional safety is so real, like to feel like I am comfortable to be here and to open up. And I don't know. I know they're not our friends. They're not, we pay them, but I think just a sense of like, I don't know, like camaraderie in a way.
Yeah,
Like
that makes
it's a partnership essentially. Like
Yeah.
to kind of help navigate what I'm working through at the time. And so
Absolutely.
I kind of want to feel like, we have some sense of, being on the same page and having like a relationship essentially. So
Yeah,
I think those are the
collaborative
things that are
effort.
like,
Yeah, that
yeah.
makes sense.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
good question.
great. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, thank you all for watching.
Yes, you can contact us at www.healingworks.co if you would like to meet with one of our therapists. We do offer a free 20-minute consultation so that you can try on the therapist and see, who would be your best fit. Or you can give us a call and go ahead and schedule.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
When you